Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye makes her strongest call yet for the abolition of red tape that is holding back growth in lucrative new industries. The fuel economy scandal in Japan engulfs yet another automaker as Suzuki admits its testing methods did not follow the ones set by the Japanese government. First Federal Reserve officials believe that a June interest rate hike is likely if the US economy keeps improving. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, May 19th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye, cabinet ministers, ordinary citizens and business leaders met in Seoul on Wednesday for the 5th ministerial meeting on deregulation. The Park administration announced a package of policies aimed at fostering future growth engines. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Groundbreaking, innovative policies. That's how President Park Geun-hye described her goals for reforming the regulations hindering new growth engines at the 5th Ministerial Deregulation meeting on Friday at the presidential office.
규제 개혁이야말로 돈 안 들이고도 민간의 창의와 투자를 극대화하고 사안별로 맞춤형 해결이 가능한 일석삼조의 효과를 가진 가장 효과적인 대책입니다. 특히 신산업 성장을 가로막는 핵심적인 규제들은 선제적이고 과감하게 철폐해야만 우리 경제가 한 단계 더 도약할 수가 있습니다.
The Park administration has continuously pledged to remove as many regulations as possible, with the exception of those deemed absolutely necessary. To ensure Korea does not lag behind in the global market, the administration will lower the barriers for new industries to levels similar to those in most advanced countries. Developing drones and road testing autonomous vehicles will now become much easier. The government will also take preemptive deregulatory measures to boost economic sentiment and improve the synergy between the regional and central governments to better reflect demand from the field. With nearly 300 deregulatory tasks submitted by businesses expected to be addressed over the next 2 months, the government expects to save some $3 billion and create 13,000 new jobs in the process. President Park stressed that timing and speed are key to reform drives, as there can be no new growth engines and no job creation without deregulation. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, we're going to take a closer look at the government's deregulatory drive for new industries and the ICT sector. Certain sectors, like the local drone industry, feel the changes are long overdue, as our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The government is planning to eliminate regulations on goods and services related to the ICT convergence sector to match the level of freedom in developed countries. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport says autonomous vehicles will be able to operate anywhere across the nation on roads designated for testing and demonstration. Also, it will apply a negative listing approach to drones for commercial use, meaning it will allow the use of drones that don't interfere with military operations or that could pose a risk to public safety.
Already, developed countries have decisively jumped into the drone industry and have acquired a lot of the technology, so we have to speed up innovation in this field too.
In the Internet of Things sector, the ICT Ministry agreed to allow a higher output of electromagnetic frequencies by 20 times the current level to 200 milliwatts. The ministry says the changes will lower costs for companies by a third and help them build exclusive IoT network connectivity. By June, the ICT Ministry says it will come up with clear guidelines in cooperation with the Interior Ministry, the Korea Communications Commission, and the Financial Services Commission on how big data companies should handle personal information. The new guidelines will no longer require companies to get an individual's approval for the collection of personal information, but they are expected to impose higher security standards on the companies with regard to how they should handle and store the data. The ICT Ministry also says it's upgrading its public database to help companies providing offline services online, starting with the National Police Agency's database on driver's licenses of chauffeurs. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
Now, nurturing Korea's biomedical industry is another key goal of the government's deregulation drive. For more on the policy changes that will be applied to biomedical drugs and devices, Oh Se-young reports.
Korea's biomedical industry is one of the sectors that will cut red tape, as part of the package of reforms unveiled on Wednesday by the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety.
Korea still falls short of global regulatory standards, so we aim to mitigate barriers to R&D and marketization and create a globally competent biohealthcare ecosystem through support and counseling.
The ministry announced its plans to bolster the country's biomedical industry and widen public access to drugs, first by overcoming regulatory barriers in research and development. It will smoothen approval procedures in using embryos for stem cell medical treatments, as well as reducing various opportunity costs in developing in vitro diagnosis products. The ministry also aims to speed up the process of putting products on the market to fast-track supplies for patients in need. It hopes to cut down requirements on clinical trials for drugs used to treat life-threatening diseases, as well as those that can tackle sudden outbreaks and epidemics which can't be tested during development. Also, biopharmaceutical companies will be able to receive quality assessment for their products before they apply for authorization, saving up to 70 days in waiting. To help ramp up the industry's competitiveness on the global stage, the ministry will reclassify IT-based medical devices according to international standards and provide assistance for biomedical developers from manufacturing to marketization. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, the head of Japanese auto giant Suzuki says the company has found errors in its fuel and emissions testing but denies cheating. The omission came a matter of hours after the president of Mitsubishi Motors resigned over his company's emissions scandal. Kim Mok-yeon has the latest.
Osamu Suzuki, the CEO of Japan's fourth-largest car manufacturer, has offered a public apology on Wednesday for using a different fuel efficiency testing method for 16 car models. He said that the testing method they used was not in line with official regulations in Japan, but said that new test results show that there was no need to modify the data.
We deeply apologize for not abiding by existing regulations when carrying out tests. However, we have been able to determine that our company's fuel efficiency results have no problems, and we have also notified the Ministry of Transport about our findings.
Suzuki said the improper testing method dated back to 2010 and that around 2.1 million vehicles in Japan have been affected. The latest news is causing a severe damage to the credibility on global car makers, as it comes just a month after Japan's Mitsubishi Motors accepted that it falsified fuel economy data for its vehicles for more than 2 decades. The firm's president Tetsuro Aikawa has announced that he will officially resign from his post next month. Last year, Germany's Volkswagen admitted that it used cheating devices on 11 million diesel vehicles to meet emission rules. Meanwhile, Korea has accused Japan's Nissan Motor earlier this week for manipulating emissions for its Qashqai diesel sport utility vehicles and called for a recall and suspension of sales. The carmaker, however, denied the allegations. Kim Mok-yeon, Arirang News.
The US Federal Reserve will likely raise interest rates in June if economic data turns out to be positive. This is according to the minutes from the Fed's April policy meeting that was released on Wednesday local time. Most Fed policymakers held this view, showing that the US Central Bank is much closer to raising rates than Wall Street had expected. Most participants judged that if incoming data were consistent with economic growth picking up in the second quarter, labour markets continued to strengthen and inflation made progress towards the Fed's 2% target, then it would be appropriate to hike rates next month. Most interpreted the steady improvement in the labour market as an indicator that the underlying pace of economic activity in the US had not worsened. Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton believes North Korea will be a top priority for the incoming US president. And if elected, she plans to deal with the North as she previously handled Iran's nuclear program. Jake Sullivan, head of the Clinton campaign's foreign policy team, added that sharply increasing pressure on North Korea is the only way to get the regime to negotiate in good faith. He said that was Clinton's experience with Iran and that those negotiations were comprehensive and highly tailored, involving almost all leading nations to put concerted and sustained pressure on Tehran. Sullivan also said China should up the pressure on Pyongyang and that the matter should be one of the top agendas at the first summit between the next US president and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, air quality in Korea has become a growing source of concern in recent years. And even if you stay inside with your windows shut, you're not completely safe from fine dust. However, help could be at hand in the form of an ordinary house plant. Kim Hae-sung has the details.
Fine dust is pumped into this box that contains a species of houseplant called Ardisia pusilla. After 3.5 hours, the concentration level of harmful particles falls from over 1,200 micrograms to well under 500 micrograms per cubic meter, a drop of more than 60%.
The plant's cuticle absorbs fine dust, and the stoma on the back of the leaf absorbs ultrafine dust, or dust known as PM 2.5, thereby filtering out airborne pollutants and toxic chemicals.
Green healing office is the term given to offices that fill more than 2% of the space with plants like this. In order to maximize the limited space, plants are attached to the wall with a filter that pumps clean air back into the office, just like an air purifier. And a growing number of offices in Korea are making use of these natural air filters. According to a company that provides green healing office services, the number of orders has increased over the last 3 years. One of them is this local government office in Seoul's Seodae Bungu district.
I heard these plants help purify the air, but at the same time they brighten our office, so they also create a more relaxing environment.
The rush to install these types of plants comes amid growing concerns about air quality in Korea, with a recent study ranking it as among the countries with the world's poorest air quality. So if you're looking for something to help absorb fine dust and keep the air clean, you might want to try using some well-placed greeneries. It's simple and 100% natural. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now, this week marks the centennial anniversary of Korea's Sorokdo Island, once home to one of the largest leper colonies in the entire world. Time and faith helped the former leprosy patients see light at the end of the tunnel. This is their story of finding peace and grace. Here's Moon Gon-young with the final report in her two-part series.
The church has an extra special place for all those living in Sorokdo Island. After generations of pain, suffering, and disdain, it's only through their religious faith that they've come to find peace, forgiveness, and hope to carry on their lives.
After decades of isolation and brutality, today, life for more than 500 former lepers in Sorokdo Island is more or less serene. They attend Mass, sing hymns, and pray the best way they can with their disfigured bodies.
The lepers here had no reason to live. There were many suicide attempts, which is why religion became such an important part of their lives.
But overcoming the indescribable anguish and dismay did not come easily, he adds. It would not have been possible without the sacrifice and dedication of two extraordinary grannies. Marianne Stöger and Margaret Pissar, fresh out of nursing school in Austria, left home in 1962 to serve leprosy patients in a country they only knew by name, Korea.
Granny Marianne? I've never seen her because I'm blind, but I miss her dearly. Back then, life was very difficult here. We rarely had anything to eat. But every morning, Granny Marianne will come door to door and spoon-feed warm milk to all of us. Milk, clothes, socks.
Marianne and Margaret brought huge changes to our lives. When no one else wanted to touch our wounds, even with gloves on, They treated our bleeding wounds with their bare hands. They came and touched us, took care of us like no other had ever before.
And one day in 2005, when they turned 70 years old, when they felt they could no longer be of help to the people in Sorokdo, Marianne and Margaret picked up and left, empty-handed. Through the love and sacrifice of these grannies and decades of despair and sorrow, the lepers here tell me the days of isolation and fear are fading. Years of neglect have been followed by peace and dignity.
I don't think it's right to feel sorry for the people of Sorokdo, to look at them with pity. I hope they can be perceived as brave survivors who overcame their tremendous pain and sorrow and found peace and grace, who can provide consolation to the rest of the world.
Because small wounds are healed when they meet big wounds. 문건영, Arirang News, Sorokdo.
Well, those are stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. Have a great day. Goodbye.